The sound of shoes pounding against gravel echoed through the morning air. Heavy breathing mixed with desperate footsteps as Madison Wells, 16 years old with her uniform skirt torn at the hem, sprinted toward the gates of Westbrook Preparatory Academy. Her backpack bounced wildly against her spine, books threatening to spill from the broken zipper that had given up weeks ago. Behind her, Preston Hawthorne led his pack of 7 privileged hunters, their laughter cutting through the Connecticut morning like glass. "Run, scholarship trash! You don't belong here anyway." His voice carried the confidence of someone who'd never faced a consequence in his 17 years of life. The Elite Seven, as they called themselves, treated this morning ritual like their own personal fox hunt, with Madison playing the unfortunate prey. Madison's feet suddenly stopped 10 yards from the school gate. She turned around, chest rising and falling in controlled breaths that seemed oddly measured for someone who'd just been running for her life. Preston and his crew skidded to a halt, genuinely surprised by this break in their well-established routine. "What's wrong, scholarship? Legs finally give out?" Preston sneered, his perfectly styled blonde hair catching the morning sun. Madison looked directly at him, her brown eyes carrying something cold and calculating that hadn't been there before. "I'm tired," she said simply, her voice steady despite everything. Preston stepped forward, shoving Madison's shoulder hard enough to send most people stumbling. Instead, she stood firm as granite, barely swaying from the impact. Preston's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. The question hung in the air like morning mist. How could a girl barely 5 foot 2 inches tall stand so solid against someone twice her size? In exactly 15 minutes, the entire Hawthorne family legacy would crumble to dust. Before we dive deeper into what happened that morning, if you've ever been bullied or watched someone suffer in silence, you know that moment when enough becomes enough. That breaking point where fear transforms into something else entirely. Drop a comment below, sharing your story. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. And if these stories of hidden strength and justice served cold resonate with you, that subscribe button helps us reach others who need to hear them. Madison Wells had been the only sophomore to receive a full scholarship to Westbrook Preparatory Academy, where annual tuition ran $85,000 and parking lots looked like luxury car dealerships. Every morning, for 6 months, the Elite Seven had made sport of hunting her from the bus stop to the school gates. Led by Preston Hawthorne, whose father served as deputy superintendent of the district, they'd perfected their routine of casual cruelty. Preston grabbed Madison's worn backpack and dumped it onto the ground, expensive textbooks splashing into a puddle from last night's rain. "Oops," he said with theatrical innocence, while Brittany Chen, daughter of a tech mogul, filmed everything on her latest iPhone. Scholarship kids really should take better care of school property. The other members of the Elite Seven closed in, forming their practice semicircle. Aiden Ross, whose mother sat on 3 corporate boards, blocked the left escape route. The Mitchell twins, Jake and Josh, covered the right. 2 more lackeys filled the gaps, creating a human cage around their favorite victim. Madison glanced at her watch, a cheap digital Timex that looked absurdly out of place at Westbrook. 9:15, she whispered to herself. Right on schedule. She pulled out an ancient Nokia phone from her pocket, the kind most students hadn't seen outside of museums. Several of the Elite Seven snickered at the outdated technology. "Recording our morning fun?" Brittany laughed, zooming her camera on Madison's face. "That brick probably doesn't even have a camera. God, being poor must be so embarrassing." She started streaming live to her TikTok, where thousands of followers tuned in for her daily Westbrook Tea segments. "Good morning, besties. You're just in time for Preston putting Scholarship Girl in her place." The comments flooded in immediately. Laughing emojis, fire symbols, and cruel encouragements filled the screen. Madison noticed the security guard, Mr. Johnson, walking past with his coffee. "Mr. Johnson," she called out clearly. The older man glanced their way, then deliberately turned toward the parking lot, suddenly very interested in checking car permits. Madison's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Camera B7 has been malfunctioning, hasn't it? Every morning from 8:45 to 9:30. Such an unfortunate blind spot right here by the gates." Preston's hand shot out, gripping Madison's wrist to spin her back toward him. "Nobody walks away when I'm talking to them." His fingers pressed hard enough to leave marks, a technique he'd perfected over years of intimidation. But something felt wrong. Under the thin fabric of her school blazer, Madison's arm felt like corded steel. "Live stream's blowing up," Brittany squealed. 8,000 viewers. Preston, do the thing where you make her apologize for existing." The chat exploded with anticipation. Viewers from around the world tuning in to watch a real-life mean girl moment unfold at one of America's most elite schools. Aiden moved behind Madison, locking his arms around her shoulders in a restraining hold he'd learned from wrestling practice. Or tried to. The moment he made contact, sweat beaded on his forehead. "Guys," he grunted with effort, "why does she feel like she weighs 300 pounds? "Density, not size," Madison said quietly, still allowing herself to be held but clearly unbothered by it. "There's a difference." She kept her eyes on Preston, who was beginning to sense that something fundamental had shifted in their daily dynamic. The Mitchell twins stepped closer, emboldened by their numbers. "Maybe she needs a morning swim," Jake suggested, nodding toward the decorative fountain near the entrance. "Scholarship kids probably don't have pools at home. We're really doing her a favor." $73,000, Madison said conversationally. "That's how much my laptop, art portfolio, and textbooks in that bag are worth. Well, were worth before you destroyed them. Funny how property damage over $5,000 changes a simple prank into a felony, isn't it?" Preston's face flushed red. "Are you threatening me? My father is deputy superintendent. One phone call and your scholarship disappears. You'll be back in whatever ghetto—" "Take off your blazer," Preston interrupted himself, a new cruelty lighting his eyes. "Take it off and jump in the fountain to get your precious bag, on your knees. Beg for it like the charity case you are." Madison tilted her head slightly. "Okay." She shrugged off her blazer with casual efficiency. The morning sun illuminated arms that belonged on a different person entirely. Muscles rippled beneath her skin, not bulky, but dense with functional strength. Years of hidden training revealed in an instant. The chat on Brittany's phone went absolutely insane. "What the? Bro, is that CGI? Scholarship girl is shredded." "Preston picked the wrong one today." Preston stumbled backward. "What kind of freak?" But Madison was already moving, not aggressively but with the controlled precision of someone who knew exactly what their body could do. She reached down and lifted her waterlogged backpack with one hand, wringing it out like a dishcloth. "Tiga Belas," she said softly in Indonesian. 13. That's when I started training. 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. Do you know what that kind of dedication does to a person?" Madison's Nokia phone chirped. She glanced at it, then smiled that not-quite smile again. The ancient phone's back panel popped open at her touch, revealing sophisticated electronics that belonged in a spy movie, not a teenager's hands. This wasn't some ordinary student recording device. The military-grade encrypted unit in her palm could capture audio with legal timestamp authentication, blockchain encryption, and automatic upload to secure servers. Every conversation within a 50-meter radius for the past 6 months had been preserved in formats acceptable in federal court. This kind of technology wasn't available to civilians. It was the type of equipment federal agencies used for long-term surveillance operations. "Neat trick," Preston snarled, trying to recover his composure. "So you're some kind of gym rat. You're still scholarship trash. Still nothing. My father's donation built the new science wing. What has your family ever done besides leech off real Americans?" The live stream viewer count hit 50,000. Comments poured in from around the world as the video spread across social platforms. What had started as typical mean girl content was transforming into something else entirely. Madison set her ruined backpack down carefully. Water pooled around destroyed textbooks and artwork that represented months of effort. "You want to know what my family does?" She pulled out a laminated card from her pocket, the kind of thing most students used for library passes. But this one had a serial number that made Preston's face pale. A new figure appeared at the school entrance. Ms. Sarah Chen, the recently hired guidance counselor, walked toward them with measured steps. Something about her posture screamed law enforcement, despite the floral dress and sensible heels. "Is there a problem here?" Ms. Chen asked, though her tone suggested she already knew every answer. Her eyes met Madison's briefly, a flash of communication passing between them. "No problem," Madison replied. "Preston was just explaining how his father's position protects him from consequences. Weren't you, Preston?" She turned back to the quarterback, whose confidence was evaporating like morning dew. "Tell everyone how the donations work. Tell your 50,000 viewers about the special arrangements." Brittany's hands shook as she tried to keep her phone steady. The live stream had taken on a life of its own, spreading across TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter simultaneously. "Guys, This is getting weird." Preston's crew began backing away, the pack mentality failing when their alpha showed weakness, but Madison wasn't focused on them anymore. She picked up a piece of her destroyed laptop, holding it up for the cameras. $2 million, she said clearly. That's what Preston's father paid to get him into Harvard. Not for academics. Preston can barely maintain a C average even with private tutors. Want to know how I know that exact number? Preston lunged forward, desperation overriding thought. It was exactly what Madison had been waiting for. Preston charged forward with all the technique of a linebacker making a game-winning tackle. 200 pounds of entitled rage aimed directly at Madison's center mass. For 6 months, this move had worked on smaller kids, sending them sprawling across hallways and into lockers. But Madison Wells wasn't just another victim anymore. She dropped her hips into a perfect squat position, the kind that took years to master. Her hands came up, catching Preston at the chest and waist, as his momentum carried him forward. Then, in a movement that defied every law of physics the watching crowd understood, she pressed him overhead like he weighed nothing more than an empty barbell. 195 pounds of quarterback hung in the air, suspended by a girl who barely cleared 5'2". Madison held him there for 5 endless seconds, her form textbook perfect, before gently lowering him back to the ground. The live stream chat completely lost its collective mind. "Bro, what just happened? Nah, this is fake, it has to be. Look at his face, that's real parateur. Scholarship girl, just military, pressed a whole human." Preston stumbled backward, his brain struggling to process what his body had just experienced. His Elite 7 crew scattered like roaches when lights turned on, all pretense of solidarity evaporating. Brittany's phone shook so badly, the live stream looked like found footage from a horror movie. "Junior national record holder," Madison said conversationally, rolling her shoulders as if she'd just finished a light warm-up. 275-pound clean and jerk at age 14. I had to quit competing when circumstances changed. Funny how skills like that never really leave you, though. Ms. Chen stepped forward, no longer bothering to maintain her counselor facade. Madison, I think it's time. Madison nodded, then turned back to the camera still broadcasting to what now showed as 2.5 million viewers. You want to know how I knew about the Harvard bribe? About the exact amount? Because my father was the IRS investigator who first discovered the paper trail, before they tried to destroy his life for it. Preston's face went from red to white so fast it looked like someone had drained all the blood from his body. No, you can't be the whistleblower's daughter, Madison confirmed. The one your daddy's lawyers spent 3 years trying to find. Surprise. I've been right under your nose this whole time, recording every single crime you and your families discussed within earshot. Every admission of bribery, every conspiracy to defraud, every single time you bragged about destroying other families who got in your way. The sound of sirens began as distant whispers, but grew rapidly louder. Not 1 or 2 patrol cars making a routine visit. This was a symphony of law enforcement, the kind of response reserved for major operations. Ms. Chen pulled out her badge, the FBI shield gleaming in the morning sun. Agent Sarah Chen, FBI White Collar Crime Division. Madison, you did incredible work. 18 months of evidence collection while enduring systematic harassment. I don't know many adults who could have handled what you did. Black SUVs poured through Westbrook Preparatory's gates like an invasion force. Agents in tactical gear emerged with practiced precision, some heading for the administration building, while others fanned out across campus. Parents arriving to drop off their children in Bentleys and Ferraris found themselves boxed in by federal vehicles. Madison's destroyed laptop suddenly seemed like the least important casualty of the morning. She pulled out her Nokia again, this time openly displaying its true nature. Every conversation, every admission, every single piece of evidence needed to take down Operation Varsity Blues 2.0. All legally recorded, all admissible in court. The screen showed an interface that belonged in a high-security government facility. This wasn't just any recording device. It was connected to a legal research platform that could instantly access federal case law, analyze financial crime patterns, and automatically compile evidence into prosecution-ready documents. The AI-powered system had been parsing conversations in real time, building airtight cases against 47 Westbrook Academy parents involved in the conspiracy. Richard Hawthorne's name sat at the top of the list, with $2.3 million in suspicious transfers highlighted in red. Below him, Brittany's father showed connections to test Proctor bribes. The Ross, Williams, and Montgomery families all had documented grade inflation payments. Years of corruption laid out in damning detail. No! Brittany dropped her phone, the live stream catching it all as it clattered to the ground. The viewer count had passed 5 million, the video already being picked up by major news outlets. Daddy said the payments were just donations. He said it was how business was done. Madison picked up Brittany's phone, making sure the camera caught everything happening around them. FBI agents were escorting administrators out of the building. Principal Morrison, who'd ignored every complaint about bullying for years, was in handcuffs. The school board president struggled against his restraints while shouting about his rights. Your viewers are witnessing history, Madison told the camera. 47 arrests across 6 states. $23 million in bribes recovered. And it all started here, with a group of kids who thought wealth meant they could destroy anyone they considered beneath them. A Mercedes G-Wagon screeched to a halt nearby, Richard Hawthorne jumping out with his phone pressed to his ear. He took 3 steps toward his son before FBI agents intercepted him. The deputy superintendent of the district, the man who'd controlled educational futures with a phone call, found himself face down on the pavement, while an agent read him his rights. "Dad!" Preston ran toward his father, but more agents blocked his path. "This is insane! You can't do this! We own this town!" "Actually," Agent Chen said calmly, "federal law doesn't recognize your local ownership claims. Preston Hawthorne, you're under arrest for assault, conspiracy to commit fraud, and destruction of property over $5,000. You have the right to remain silent." The live stream captured it all. Preston Hawthorne, star quarterback and tormentor of the week, being led away in handcuffs while crying for his daddy. His Elite 7 crew scattered across campus, some trying to hide in bathrooms, while others called parents who were already being arrested at their offices and country clubs. Madison stood in the center of the chaos, finally allowing her shoulders to relax. For 18 months, she'd played the perfect victim, enduring daily harassment while building an airtight case. Every shove, every cruel word, every moment of humiliation had been documented and catalogued. "My father tried to do this the right way," she said to the camera, her voice carrying across the morning air. "He filed reports, submitted evidence, followed proper channels. They destroyed him for it, cost him his job, his reputation, forced our family into witness protection. So we decided to try something different." She looked directly at Preston as agents guided him into a vehicle. "You asked what my family contributed? We contributed justice. And unlike your family's donations, ours can't be bought off or buried in legal proceedings." 6 months later, a different camera captured Madison Wells standing before a podium at Harvard University. Not through bribery or connections, but through merit and an extraordinary essay about courage in the face of systematic oppression. The real Harvard, not the shadow version Preston's father had tried to purchase. The Westbrook scandal had exploded across national media. 73 arrests when all connections were traced. $45 million in bribes recovered. The largest education fraud bust in U.S. history, all started by a 16-year-old girl who refused to stay a victim. Preston Hawthorne sat in a juvenile detention facility, serving 5 years for his crimes. His father faced 20 years in federal prison. The Hawthorne family fortune, built on generations of corruption, was being systematically dismantled to pay restitution to all the qualified students denied opportunities over the years. Brittany Chen's live stream had become prosecution evidence exhibit number 1. Her own words, broadcast to millions, helped convict her father and dozens of others. She'd transferred to public school, her family's assets frozen pending trial. Madison's true identity had finally been revealed. Daughter of Marcus Wells, the IRS investigator who'd first uncovered the education bribery network before being forced underground. The family had spent 3 years in witness protection, with Madison training relentlessly in powerlifting to channel her anger into something productive. "People ask me if I'm angry about what I endured," Madison said in her Harvard acceptance speech. 18 months of daily harassment, destruction of my property, constant fear. But that anger served a purpose. Every moment of suffering was evidence. Every tear was testimony. And now, every convicted criminal proves that justice doesn't care about your bank account. The audience erupted in applause, but Madison wasn't finished. She looked directly into the news cameras, knowing her message would reach far beyond this auditorium. To every student out there being bullied by someone who thinks money makes them untouchable, document everything. To every administrator who looks the other way because of donor pressure, we're watching. To every parent who thinks they can buy their child's way through life, Federal prison has no VIP section. As she left the stage, Madison's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She'd received hundreds of these since the story broke, students from around the country sharing their own experiences with corruption and bullying. But this one was different. Westbrook was just the beginning. Check the news. Madison pulled up a news app to find breaking headlines. FBI raids elite boarding schools across 7 states, and federal investigation expands to college athletics programs, scrolling across her screen. She walked across Harvard's campus, no longer the scared girl running from bullies at Westbrook's gates. Other students nodded respectfully as she passed, some calling out words of encouragement. She'd become a symbol of something larger than herself, proof that the system could be beaten if you were smart enough, strong enough, and patient enough to let your enemies hang themselves with their own arrogance. Near the library, Madison noticed a group of younger students huddled together. Their body language was familiar. The closed-off posture of victims, the worried glances over shoulders, the protective clustering that meant someone was hunting them. A group of older students in expensive clothes stood nearby, laughing at something on a phone. Madison changed direction, walking directly toward the group. The bullies noticed her approach, and their laughter died. They recognized her, of course. Everyone did now. The girl who'd brought down Westbrook. The scholarship kid who'd sent millionaires to prison. "Is there a problem here?" Madison asked quietly, positioning herself between the younger students and their tormentors. "No problem," one of the older students said quickly, pocketing his phone. "We were just leaving." They scattered, but Madison caught the eye of one of the younger students, a girl who reminded her of herself 2 years ago. Scared, alone, but with a spark of defiance that hadn't been extinguished yet. "Thank you," the girl whispered. Madison smiled, the first genuine smile she'd allowed herself in years. "Document everything," she said simply. "And remember, they only have power if you let them." Madison's phone buzzed with messages from students nationwide, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, all facing corruption that dwarfed Westbrook. She remembered Preston's sneer, her father's destroyed career, 18 months of calculated suffering. The FBI had offered her a consulting position. She'd planned to focus on her studies, to finally live normally. But there were too many Preston Hawthornes still out there. She typed to the FBI handler, "Send me the files, all of them." A Chicago student texted, "They said nobody can touch them." Madison responded, "Bullies exist everywhere. But now, so do I."